Stan Jabalisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station. W1GV Whiskey 1, good vibrations. In a recent video, one of the viewers made a comment that was somewhat out of context, but nevertheless represents a concern, maybe a paranoia type concern on the part of the general technical population of the United States. What if we have an all-out electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, war with some other country? How can we, as ham radio operators, make sure that our station, our particular station, for example, how can I make sure that my station will work after an all-out electromagnetic pulse attack against the United States? And the answer is twofold. First of all, I'm not sure I'd be terribly concerned about whether my ham radio station worked or not. I'd be more concerned about whether I could get food and water and basic survival supplies to make sure that I stayed alive after such an attack, because all of the utilities would likely be shut down, food supplies would run out after a short while, and we got plenty of deer running around here in the black holes, but I'm not sure their meat would be very good eating. Got plenty of wood to burn, so roast deer over a wood fire for the next 4 or 5 years. Well, you talk about the caveman diet, there you go. We'd find out whether or not that works. Ham radio would seem relatively unimportant by comparison. But if you wanted your station to continue to be functional, so that you could at least communicate your woes with other ham radio operators in the world, there are certain things that I would do to prepare my station were I that concerned, whether that were to rise to a high enough level of concern in my roster of worries. I would always keep all of my radios completely isolated from all outside electrical contact at all times, except when I was actually on the air. That is to say, I would unplug all of the power cords right at the radio, not at the wall outlet or the electrical outlet if you're doing that way, or at the power supply, but right at the radio. I'd take each radio and maybe just store it all by itself, or even store it in a special Faraday cage for all my sensitive electronic apparatus, and make sure that it was disconnected from everything at all times except when I was using my station. Of course, electricity would not be available from conventional sources after such an attack, so you'd need to use some kind of independent electrical source that didn't rely on fuel. The gas pumps wouldn't work. The methane gas lines would probably be down. You might have a propane tank on your property, but it would only last for a certain length of time. A solar-powered backup battery, a solar recharged backup battery. You'd have to make sure to disconnect the solar panels and the battery from all the wiring, and put as much as you could in a Faraday cage. You'd have to go to every extreme imaginable. And so I'm going to ask you, viewers, what other measures you think would be relevant to prepare for such an eventuality. But it sounds to me kind of like, how would you make sure that you were one of the people who could still communicate with your ham radio after an asteroid impacted the Earth, or something like that? It's a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions, and I can't really see that I would care very much. I really have to tell you, I'm not worrying about it much. I've got my own health concerns, my own private health concerns, that are much more likely to do me in than an electromagnetic pulse. And I have to honestly say I'm just not that worried about it because of that particular situation. But if you are, if you want to be determined to, I think you want to be one of those extreme survivalists and make sure that you had a battery-powered ham radio station, rechargeable with solar or wind, or maybe a babbling brook that ran by your property, some sort of turbine that could generate recharge power for that. Just isolate yourself from the mainstream society and then wait for an event that is more likely not to occur than to occur. But you never know, of course. So what would you do, viewers? Brainstorm a little bit. Let me have it. Comments are open this time. The viewer who made this comment remarked that I'd done electromagnetic pulse videos in the past without opening up comments. I guess that was before I even knew how to do it on YouTube, I guess. In any case, Stan Jabalisco W1GV will now sign off. Leave the YouTube wire waves open to you. 73 and so long, which, regardless of power source and station status, as long as it worked, would translate in my native fist to so long, da-da-da-da-da-da.